What's going on, everyone? I'm just a typical average American here today to react and learn about the history of the Japanese flag. Now, most Americans, like myself, do not know much about Japan, but I at least know the Japanese flag. It is very, very unique, very bold, very iconic. And I have to say, just from like an artistic point of view, it's beautiful. It's very simple. It's very easy to recognize, and it's bold, and it's like, I don't know, it's like abstract art or something. I absolutely love the Japanese flag, so I wanted to learn more about what it means or where it came from. How did you come up with this? Just a red circle on a white background? Like it in theory, it sounds like, is that a good idea? But when you actually look at it, it's beautiful. It's wonderful. Now, when I was looking this up, I also found another flag, the Rising Sun flag. I'm not exactly sure what this is, but I have seen this before as well. I'm not sure where. I'm not sure what the difference is between the two flags or what they mean or how they're used. So I'm hoping to get some clarification on that as well. So with that being said, I have a little video here I want to watch that's going to explain all about the history of the Japanese flag and everything I need to know. So let's take a look.
Well, I want to take a look at the history of this flag because, as we can see from this really nice image, it's already quite an old flag that was used for a long time.
True. Yeah, seriously. I don't know how old this picture is, but man, it's so cool how the Japanese flag can be, it's very easy to reproduce. So I can see it being very, very, very old because it would have been much easier to recreate this flag and put it in lots of places. And it's so iconic, I guess. It's so recognizable. It's so cool.
But of course, if we look at some more of Japan's recent history, like in the Second World War, for example, we find another flag, a rising sun flag.
Yes, yes, the rising sun. Oh, that's what it is? Oh my gosh, that's what it is. Oh my, I feel dumb. I feel a little dumb. It's a sun, obviously. On the left, it's like the sun with the rays coming out. Is that what it is on the right as well? It's the sun on a white background. Why did the flag change? Well, I guess we're going to learn that.
So, in this video, I want to look at when did this change? Was there a change in flag, and how are these two flags related? Why do we find in the earlier period and today that this flag without the bars is found, but in the past you do find this one in the Second World War?
Huh.
Well, first of all, the flag without the bars on, so just with the red dot, is called the Hinomaru. And this is
Hinomaru. Okay, that's what this is. The Hinomaru. Okay.
relating to the sun. It's called the flag of the rising sun is often used for the other one, but actually the red dot is also symbolizing the sun. And this is again to do with the name of Japan in Japanese, Nippon. This actually means the land of the rising sun.
Land of the rising sun. I have heard that phrase as well. Is that a Japanese phrase? This is all starting to make so much sense now that I'm finally learning about it. The flag is the sun. Japan is known as the land of the rising sun. It's all coming together. I'm starting to get it.
It has a lot of connotations with that. In the Japanese folk religion or Shinto, you have Amaterasu, which is one of the sun goddesses, and for the Japanese, the emperors were thought to be incarnations of the sun,
wow.
Descendants of the sun.
Descendants of the sun. The Japanese emperors. See, that's really important to know as well. Man, this is fantastic. So the sun has a lot of significance in Japanese culture. Like, besides being the land of the rising sun, literally the emperors of Japan were thought to be related, descended from the sun itself.
Japanese, the emperors were thought to be incarnations of the sun, descendants of the sun.
Okay.
So this is clearly very important. Now in Japan, you had a lot of noble families of different ruling classes.
Okay.
And these had their own symbols as well, called mon. And actually one of these might be very familiar. One is of the Mitsubishi clan, which of course today they started producing cars, so they're famous worldwide.
What? These are family clan symbols. And Mitsubishi is like an ancient family clan symbol in Japan. That's like a Japanese family symbol. Oh my gosh, this is so cool. It's also so cool like that Japan has family crests and family and clan symbols. That's such an awesome concept. Like there is nothing like that in America or American history.
Another on there, the yellow one, is the imperial symbol, and the others I just really liked because they've got cranes on them in black and white.
Yeah.
But essentially, that was the case in Japan. You also had, of course, the Hinomaru, this with the sun flag, but it wasn't connected to a national idea. Although when many of these families did start to fight each other and to try to take over Japan, like Oda Nobunaga, Tokugawa, and various others, they would often see this flag as a symbol that represented bringing every of these clans together.
Ah, so this flag here was not a symbol of Japan, the country. Not a symbol of all of Japan. It was a symbol of like a single clan or several clans. And it also was a representative of unifying the clans together. But in the 1800s, it existed, but it did not mean Japan as a whole.
Now, in 1854, the situation changes slightly because at this point, the Tokugawa shogunate is ruling over Japan. They've conquered all of Japan. And so they actually order that their merchant ships should use this flag on their ships.
Okay.
Now, this again is because of increased contact with Europeans. Of course, when Europeans came to trade, they all had flags on so you could identify where they were from.
Sure.
And so this is an idea that the Japanese borrowed. Now, in 1870...
So this is like the first instance of this being a symbol to represent Japan, like internationally, like putting it on Japanese boats and ships, and the rest of the world basically seeing this symbol and starting to associate it with Japan.
Actually, they passed that this was the official flag, the de jure flag of Japan.
Oh, wow, okay. 1870. Wow, like 160 years ago, basically. 160 years ago is when this became, by law, the official flag of Japan. Cool.
The Hinomaru, and that it was also used on merchant vessels, for example. So both on the sea and on land, this became the official flag.
Okay.
However, in 1885, there was a law passed that essentially got rid of all the old laws that weren't in this Gazette of Laws that had been published. And actually, one of those laws was the fairly modern law from 1870 that had made this the official flag.
Oh.
So technically, from 1885 onwards, Japan had no de jure flag. However...
What? So it became the flag of Japan. What is it called again? It's called it's the Hinomaru. Hinomaru became the official flag. Then 5 years later, it was not anymore. Okay.
Of course, the Hinomaru remained the de facto flag, as in they continued to use it, but legally speaking, it wasn't their national flag.
Okay.
And we can see this from artwork at the time. Of course, the late 19th century is when the Japanese Empire was founded. They started to expand outwards into China. This image is from the end of the First Sino-Japanese War, and you can see on the tents, obviously, they have the red Hinomaru being shown.
Yeah, that's so cool how we can literally look back at Japanese art and see when the flag started being used based on incorporating it into the artwork.
And in this image, for example, from the Second Sino-Japanese War after the invasion of Manchuria, you can see they're using the Five Races flag, which I talked about in my video about the Chinese flags, and also the Hinomaru to represent Japan there. But in this image from the Russo-Japanese War at the turn of the 20th century, we do actually see another flag being used.
Yes, yes. Literally, the rising sun flag. What is this? What does this mean? How are there two flags?
And actually, this flag is often called the rising sun flag, and this is the one that I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
And this is actually a special variant of that flag, but as I said, it's known as the rising sun flag in English, or in Japanese as the Hiyashi.
Hiyashi, okay.
And actually, this symbol is also found on some of the clan Mon from earlier in Japan, this rising sun again. The sun, of course, is a very important symbol for the Japanese, as I said, and the rising sun motif with the rays coming off the sun is also an older idea in Japan.
It's interesting because it's so similar. This flag is so similar to the other flag. It just has, like, sun rays coming off, Is that mean anything? Was it intentionally made very, very similar for some reason?
And actually, in 1870, when you had the merchant flag and the national flag on land becoming the Hinomaru, actually the Hiyashi is also adopted at the same time, but for the war fleet of the Japanese, for the military ships that they had. And this is, of course,
Oh,
the famous flag that we most often associate with the Japanese in the Second World War, or at least I certainly do.
maybe that's where I recognize this. So this flag is associated with the Japanese military more, and it's also associated with World War II. I know I have seen this image before, the rising sun flag. I'm just not sure where it was from, so this is helping me a bit.
Especially actually that there are two different versions of this. Now I always thought
Yeah.
the one on the left was just the Japanese flag with the sun slightly offset, but in fact there is actually a difference because there is another variant which has the flag, the sun exactly in the middle, so it's horizontal.
Oh my gosh. This is getting a little more complicated than I expected. Okay. So there's a variation, two variations of the rising sun flag.
And this is because with it in the middle, it was the flag of the army, so the land forces,
Okay.
whereas the offset version was actually the flag flown by the Japanese Navy.
Ah, okay. They're both military flags. Man, that'd be very, very difficult for people to tell the difference if they weren't paying attention. That's what I would worry about. It's a very subtle difference, but important. This one's for the Navy, and the center is for the Army. Okay.
So in 1945, of course, the Second World War came to an end, the Japanese surrendered, and most of the time when people surrender, that means that there's a change that occurs, and in the case of the Second World War, it meant that a lot of flags changed as well. Think, for
Okay.
example, today the Germans don't use the swastika anymore,
Uh
and for
huh.
good reason. And of course, this meant that the Navy also changed its flags, and the country itself, of course, kept the Hinomaru as we know it.
Oh, so was it the end of World War II that Japan stopped using the rising sun flag, or does Japan use the rising sun flag to this day still? Possibly. I am very curious about this.
But the Navy really did like the old flag, and so in 1954, actually, they changed the flag, but not really. They basically just made the shade of red lighter.
Oh, oh, yeah, okay, yeah. They changed the color. Okay.
Now, we have actually got another game of Spot the Difference coming up. And this is because in 1974 there was a bit of a crisis in Japan, and several of the politicians tried to push through a bill to make this the official flag. Because, of course, while it was being used de facto, de jure, it wasn't the flag and hadn't been since 1885.
Oh, right. So what year was this? 1974. Oh my gosh. As recently as 1974? Like 60 years ago. That's it. Like, this was not technically, not legally, the flag of Japan yet. Is this when it became the official flag of Japan?
But there was a lot of opposition to this because of Japan's role in the Second World War. It's also why they don't have essentially an army that goes out to fight in other places. If you look at the name of the Navy, it's not called the Japanese Navy, it's the Japanese Maritime Self-Defense Force. And I believe the army is
Oh.
called something similar to the Self-Defense Forces of Japan because of this
Oh.
stance that they took after the Second World War.
Wow. I did not know anything about that, about Japan's military, and that it's technically not called an army or a navy ever since the war. They're taking on a much more passive role, but still, like, Japan still has military personnel. Okay, okay.
But there was a lot of opposition to it and it didn't go through. However, it came to a head again in 1999.
Wait, that the Japanese flag is still not the flag? Or, I'm sorry, what's it called again? Hinomaru. Hinomaru? The Hinomaru is still not the flag of Japan in 1999? Like 24 years ago. Like, that's so recent.
After a school teacher committed suicide because of this debate that had gone on in the school about whether they could fly the Hinomaru, so the flag, and sing the national anthem as well.
Wow,
And actually,
what?
this prompted there to be a bill that actually did manage to get through Parliament, so it officially became the flag. But at the
Oh my gosh, someone committed suicide because of this debate. over the right to fly the Hinamaru in school. My God. But, okay, so in 1999, only 24 years ago, wow, this became the Japanese flag. I did not know it was so recent.
At this point, they had to stipify which of the shades of red they actually had to use. And so there is
Yeah, because on Google, you will find, like, both of these shades of red. I actually didn't realize that this was on purpose. I thought this was like a mistake or an image mistake on Google. These are two different flags, two different shades. Huh.
Another meme which is like, can I copy your homework kind of thing, which is about the Japanese flag changing from a slightly darker shade to a slightly lighter shade. And it does seem that nowadays the Japanese do use a slightly lighter shade of red.
Okay.
But there are even more controversies to do with the rising sun flag outside of Japan. Whereas inside Japan, the Hinamaru controversy was very big. Outside of Japan, no one really thinks that the Japanese flag is controversial.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Like, I guess, a lot of time has passed by, and now in 2023, someone like me doesn't even know about all this controversy or how it was related to World War II or any of this. So to me, like, it's all the same to me. Like, whatever Japan wants to do is good. I'm not offended by the rising sun flag. I think they're both beautiful.
However, it's not the same with the rising sun flag, and this came to a head in 2018 when there were joint military activities going on, training sort of expeditions going on in South Korea.
Ooh.
And the South Koreans specifically asked the Japanese Navy, the Maritime Self-Defense Forces, not to fly the rising sun flag, just their national flag and the flag of Korea. However, the Japanese admiral at the time said, absolutely not, we're flying our flag, and this is our naval flag, and we're
Wow. South Korea?
Flag, just then maritime self-defense. South Koreans specifically.
Yeah, South Korea. There was a sort of a conflict with Japan and South Korea. So South Korea does not like the rising sun flag or its, like, military or World War relations or connotations or sort of that relationship, and they asked the Japanese Navy to take down the flag. Man, that is a lot. And Japan said no.
Flag, and this is our naval flag, and we're proud of it, and so we'll fly it. But actually, the South Koreans then said, no, you really have to change that. You can't show it here because it's offensive to Koreans. And so the Japanese pulled out of the military practices there, which.
Oh, so the flag, it like does mean other things to other cultures. I guess to Americans, like, there's nothing offensive about any of the flags, I have to say, or at least not to anyone my age.
Just goes to show how strongly people feel about these flags, because for the Japanese, this is their maritime flag.
Right.
They're proud of it. They say it's their proud maritime tradition. They're a proud people. But for people like, especially the Koreans and also the Chinese and other people in Asia, that flag, the rising sun flag, is a sign of the past, of the Second World War, when many atrocities, terrible atrocities.
It's very interesting. It's interesting how this can mean a lot of different things to a lot of people. Like a flag, like here he's showing the Nazi flag, and like how how the definitions of flags and what they represent can mean such different things to such different cultures. All right, there you have it. The history of the Japanese flag. Man, this was absolutely fascinating to learn about, I have to say. I know about the Japanese flag, like it's one of the few things I am familiar with in Japan, but I didn't realize there was a whole story, a whole history behind it. And as well as the naval flag, the maritime flag, the rising sun flag. So I don't know, this was just so fun to learn about. Like, so much interesting things about Japan and Japanese culture that I have never learned about, not even school. They didn't teach us any of this. So I feel like this is way past due. And it's really, really, really fun to learn about all these different things and how this is at its core, one of the things I learned, this is a depiction of the sun in Japan and the emperor's relationship to the sun and how important that is to Japanese culture. So there was a lot of stuff in here that was so cool and important to learn about, I think. So I enjoyed this quite a bit. Anyway, if you enjoyed this as well, feel free to give this video a like or leave a comment. And if you're interested in more videos like this, me reacting and learning about Japanese culture and Japan, feel free to subscribe for more. And until then, thanks for watching, and see you next time.